Happy birthday, baby lettuces. Radishes have made their appearance too. All of the baby fall plants are doing good. This is my absolute favorite weather. It's in the 60s. It feels good. There's a slight breeze. It's a little dreary. I think the garden looks the prettiest. We transplanted these strawberry plants. What we're looking for is obviously all of the growth that was here has died. But then here is a bunch of new growth. That's what I like to see. The leeks we planted 2 days ago now. This is their 3rd day in the dirt. They're looking really good. Starting to stand back up. I think they'll be okay. Some of the trees have already started to drop their leaves, and it makes my soul so happy. Harvested 18 pounds of jalapeno peppers today. We're still getting baskets of tomatoes. Hi everyone. I got busy this morning with cutting up jalapenos to make jalapeno jelly and candied jalapenos today. Yesterday I froze some cream cheese stuffed jalapenos. They're in the freezer. I'll tell you a little bit about that process too. I just thought that there was too much information here for me not to share with y'all. I'm a mess, that's why I'm wearing a hat. My kitchen's a mess, it's a homeschool day here. So everything's a mess, just overlook the mess. I'm bringing you some good information, I think. So this is my life is a mess. Just so y'all know I'm not lying. There's Play-Doh on the floor, bits of cut paper. The kids are enjoying using their scissors to just cut up scrap pieces of paper. There's crayons. It's a mess. We're starting with our jalapeno jelly first. My biggest tip, probably for working with jalapenos at all, is to wear gloves. I have learned my lesson. It is not a fun lesson to learn. What you're going to want to do is cut the stem off the jalapeno. I'm saving our jalapeno bits for chickens and ducks. Cut in half. Take your finger, scrape out those seeds and the stemminess inside there, and toss in your blender or food processor. This gets going quicker once you get a hang of it. For this recipe, you want 12 ounces of jalapenos that are halved. The insides are scraped out. 12 ounces of jalapenos. Some of the 2 pouches of the liquid sugar gel. And 2 cups of cider vinegar. 6 cups of sugar. I have got my jars in the sink already and some bleach, warm bleach water to sterilize. Our dishwasher does not work, so I have been sterilizing my jar in a little bit of bleach. I am going to get all of these, my 12 ounces of jalapenos cut up, scraped out, and into my food processor. I'm actually going to do 2 batches of the jelly today. One of my best tips when it comes to jelly is to do each batch, if you're doing multiple batches, individually and not try to do them all together. It's the best way I found to actually get my jellies to set properly, is just to not do a bunch at once. Stick to the recipe and do 1 batch at a time. I'm pouring 1 cup of apple cider vinegar into my food processor. And then I'm going to process this until it's pureed. I don't think you want to liquefy it. You just kind of want a puree of all the bits of jalapenos. There's still some bits of jalapeno in there, and that's what we want. In a large stainless steel pot, we're going to pour in our pepper mixture. Stick that in the sink. Our 2nd cup of apple cider vinegar. And our 6 cups of sugar. Thank you, Sissy.
You're welcome, Mama.
Alright. We're going to stir that all together. Turn on high heat, and we're going to stir this pretty much constantly until it comes to a boil, and we're going to boil for 10 minutes, stirring constantly. It's the worst part. While I'm getting this heated up to start boiling, everything happens really quickly. After you've boiled for 10 minutes and you've stirred, everything happens quick. You add your pectin and you hard boil for a minute, and then it's straight over to fill your jars. So you want to have everything ready. So while I'm waiting on this to get hot enough to where I need to stir it constantly, I'm going to run and get my water bath canner. I'm going to fill it with the water that I think will cover all the jars. I'm going to go ahead and get it heating up and get my jars out of the bleaching water rinsed and put into the hot water to keep them warm until I'm ready for them. And I'm going to get all my canning supplies ready in my area that I'm going to fill the jars in. These jars are in here, hot and steamy. I have canning supplies set up, clean rings, lids, ladle, the lid setter that I use as the poker to debubble things, jar lifters, and a pot holder to set the hot pan on. Alright, it is boiling. I have set a timer for 10 minutes, and I'm going to stir this for the entire 10 minutes. Yay! Oh, and make sure you get a long spoon, because that steam is hot. Still stirring. 6 minutes left. Also, don't inhale the steam. It's not very fun. We have 20 seconds left while our timer goes off. This recipe says it'll make 5 half-pint jars. I have 8 half-pint jars ready just in case I need more. Now once this timer goes off, probably should have already had this open, we're going to pour in our 2 packets of liquid pectin. And then we're going to boil hard for 1 minute. Ooh. Pouring in the liquid liquid pectin. Stirring. Alright, here we go. One thing I forgot when laying out my supplies was a canning funnel. We're going to, normally if there is a foam on top of your jellies, you're going to want to skim it off really quickly. This does not have any foam. So we're just going to start filling our jars to a 1/4 inch of headspace, which means up here there's about, you want to leave a 1/4 inch gap from the top. They have a cool measuring tool, kind of looks like stair steps, that measures the headspace. I used to have one. I lost it somewhere along the way. I'm getting pretty good at estimating. Another thing I forgot. A rag, wet wash rag to wipe the rims. So I've got that where I think it's about a 1/4 inch head space. Take a non-metallic poker tool, poke down in there, make sure there's no air bubbles. You could have added green dye to this when you were cooking it all. I don't feel that there's a need. I think it's kind of a pretty color anyways. I don't want to add a bunch of dye to the stuff that I'm making. Defeats the purpose for me. But to each their own. Place a clean lid. Then we're going to set our ring, and it's very hot. We're going to fingertip tight, which for me, I screw it down to where I meet resistance, and then I give it one little push. We don't want it too tight, we don't want it too loose. That's always about perfect. Grab it with your tongs, and we're going to set it in the hot water bath canner over here. And fill the rest of our jars. We wipe the rim of our jar to get all the stickiness off. Any particles that might be there that might prevent a good seal when you place your lid. I am sticking my last jar in. I came out to filling 6 jars. On the water bath canner, you want the water to cover the jars at least 1 inch. You guess how much you think you're going to need in there basically. You stick your jars in, you want hot jars, you're putting the jelly in hot jars, and you want hot water that you're sticking them to in the water bath canner. Cold glass and hot liquids, hot anything isn't gonna do any good. It's gonna bust. So hot jars, hot liquid, hot canner. Covered with 1 inch of water. If you get them all in here and you see that it's not quite 1 inch, you want hot water to go in here with it to increase the amount of liquid to get your inch above the jars. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to wait for it to boil, and then we'll come back. This has started boiling, so I've set a timer for 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes is up, I'm going to remove the lid, set it to the side, obviously turn off my burner, and I'm going to set the timer again for 5 minutes. And I'm going to let this sit here and cool for 5 minutes before I use my jar lifters to lift them out onto a place that I'm going to let them rest for 24 hours. That they're not going to be disturbed, they're going to be allowed to cool, set. The lids are going to set like they're supposed to. And then after 24 hours, I can remove the rings, label them, and put them where they're going to set in my pantry. There was a few points I was wanting to make. When you're removing the seeds from your jalapenos, you don't have to be super particular and meticulous and get all of the seeds. A few seeds aren't going to matter. And then when you're filling your jars with your jelly, before you're going to can them, if you have a jar that is halfway full or a little bit left, stick it in your fridge and use that to eat right away. It'll be good. And most of the times you're going to have a little bit left. This today, I actually looked out, it was perfectly 6 jars. So I didn't have any to stick into the fridge. The way I like to eat this jelly is on cream cheese spread over the top on crackers. I like to eat my Cowboy Candy that way too. It is really good. It's sweet and spicy, and we enjoy it. I like to gift it. We enjoy it around the holidays. I like to take it to parties. It's just a nice thing to have on your pantry shelf. Our timer is off. Shut off the timer. Shut off the heat. Remove the lid. It is hot. Let the steam go away from you. Set the lid to the side. Set the timer again for 5 minutes. Oops. Start. Let that cool for 5 minutes, and we're going to pull them out of the canner. Another thing I think I need to say is, when you're getting your jars ready, the jars that you're going to use on your canning project, always check them for any nicks or cracks or warped looking glass. So that way you hopefully prevent breaking a jar. The way that I preserve our jalapenos is I do candied jalapenos, which is probably my favorite way. Candied jalapenos. I don't know if I have a jar of jalapeno jelly left. It does not look like I do. Jalapeno jelly. And then this year I had enough that I pickled a whole bunch of hot peppers, and I am loving them this way. I've been eating them on just about everything. Pickled hot peppers, jalapeno jelly, jalapeno poppers, just cream cheese stuffed jalapenos. I will show you that here in just a little bit. And I'm going to dehydrate a bunch, I think, to keep in a jar just to throw in some things. If I have enough, I will probably pickle more, because I have 10 or 11 half pints of the pickled peppers. And I have really been going through those quickly. So that is, I think, the only ways that I have been preserving our jalapenos. Here are the jalapenos that I stuffed last night. And then stuck them in the freezer on this tray to flash freeze, which makes them easier to throw in a bag, and they're easy to individually pull out the amount that I want to cook. Sometimes I just cook them like this, sometimes I wrap them in bacon. But the cream cheese, it's really easy. All that I do, I don't get super fancy. A box of cream cheese that's softened, and then I grab a couple handfuls of shredded cheese, throw it in there, mush it all together with a fork, add probably a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder, and mix it all up. Take a spoon after I've halved, destemmed, deseeded, deveined my jalapenos. Take a spoon, fill it up with cream cheese, set them on a tray, and freeze them. It's as simple as that. Store them in a gallon bag in your freezer. I actually still have some from this time last year that are frozen that I ate a few this past week, and they're still good. So that is an easy way to preserve jalapenos. Okay, for our next recipe for candied jalapenos, or Cowboy Candy, we are going to need, I finally wrote down the recipe. I forget where I got the original recipe from, but it's my favorite. And so every year when I make Cowboy Candy, I go on the internet looking for the recipe that I used, only to remember that I posted it on my Facebook page, my homestead page, last summer, so I can easily go there and find it, but I decided to actually write it down this year. So maybe I won't forget. You need 3 pounds of jalapenos, which I'm fixing to weigh out. And we're going to slice them into rounds that are about 1/4 inch thick. And we're going to try our best to deseed them. Unless you want really hot Cowboy Candy, then leave the seeds in. 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. 6 cups of sugar. 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. 1/2 teaspoon of celery seed, which I never have, so I omit that. And it's still good. 3 teaspoons of garlic powder and a teaspoon of ground red pepper. I'm going to get all of my stuff together. Here's my mountain of jalapenos. It's 9 pounds of jalapenos. I've tripled the recipe. So I'm going to do triple the amount that it calls for of everything. It looks like a lot. I'm not sure exactly how much it's going to make. It usually takes a lot of jalapenos to make a little bit of Cowboy Candy. I've washed and I've rinsed these pretty well. I don't really use any pesticides or add anything to it, so all I had to worry about was the little bit of dirt that might be on them. So I rinsed them, they're draining, and now I'm going to cut them up. I have my jar sterilizing for this round. I'm not really sure how many I'm going to need. Look at the size of these things. These are jalapenos that I grew. Look at the size of them. That's rabbit poop and faith. They're huge. I was really excited about that. I was going to make the point that if you were wanting to save pepper seeds, wait until they get their mature color, which in most cases is red, like jalapenos and bell peppers. Cut them open, pull out the seeds, let them sit and dry somewhere on a sheet of paper. Write the name of whatever variety is on the sheet of paper so you don't forget, because you will forget. And it's as simple as that, to save pepper seeds. I'm not going to save pepper seeds this year because, for one, I have enough seeds for next year, I think. And for two, I planted all my hot peppers and all my sweet peppers in the same area, the same 2 rows. And next year, I think I'm going to split my sweet peppers onto one side of the garden and my hot peppers on the other side, so I won't have any cross-pollination. I won't get some sweet peppers that are actually hot or some hot peppers that are actually sweet. I think that's what I'm going to try next year, and then save seeds next year. Show you how to, you want to cut these. That off about that thick. And then I take, and the best I can, try to pop out that seed in the middle. I don't like mine really, really hot. Get like that. That's what you want to do for all the peppers. Might take me a while. I have my jars warming up in here again. I have it on about medium heat because it's still going to be a bit. In here, I already have mixed my, because I've tripled the amount, so it took forever to show you on camera. I've mixed my apple cider vinegar, my sugar, my turmeric, garlic powder, and ground red pepper. All of the amounts are going to be in the show notes. I'm going to include those. So that way you can just look there and know what you need. On the apple cider vinegar, I wouldn't do anything special and get the organic with the mother type, because we're going to heat this up to a point that's going to kill any of that good stuff that's in it, that's living in the apple cider vinegar. So I would just go for the regular apple cider vinegar in this case. We're going to heat this. I have it on high heat. I'm stirring it all together. We're going to heat it we're going to heat it up to boiling. Then we're going to reduce the heat and let it simmer for 5 minutes. Stirring it often. After that 5 minutes, we're going to add our peppers and we're going to boil them slowly for 4 minutes. Stirring often. It is boiling. I'm going to turn the heat down. Start a timer. And let it get it back down to a simmer. And let it simmer for 5 minutes. Our time is up. I'm going to take it off the heat just a minute while I try to add the peppers to this mess. Gigantic bowl of peppers. I think we're just going to try to do the best we can. If this stuff is hot, you do not want it to splash on you. I don't want it to splash on me. That's the last of it. That is a full pot of peppers. I'm going to stir this in and let it simmer. Put it back on the heat and let it simmer for 4 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to transfer my hot jars out of the canner to my canning station and get that ready to go. Okay, with a slotted spoon, now that these are done boiling, I am going to spoon some out, stick them in the jar. We want a 1/4 inch of headspace again. Fill that jar up the best we can. I'm going to use a poker to gently poke as many as I can down in there. I want to pack the jar a little bit. Not too tightly, I don't think. This is where I say it looks like we have a whole lot of jalapenos, but it's pretty amazing how many you can pack into a jar once they've cooked a little. Alright, I think that is about good. Show you how far I've got them packed. About like that. And I'm going to finish filling all these jars with jalapenos, as many as I can, get them into the jars. And I'm going to set this liquid back on the stove and boil it for 6 minutes to thicken it. That filled 10 half pints with the peppers. See what I mean? Looks like a lot of peppers, but it's actually, they pack down in the jar. They float, so you do want to kind of pack them in the jar enough to where they're not going to float once you have them canned and on your pantry shelf. You want them to look pretty still. I'm also going to, I forgot, I'm going to wash up a few pint jars, get them sterilized, and heat them up as well, because with the remaining liquid that doesn't fill these jars, I'm also going to can that too to use. I love it on to marinate meat. It is really, really good, so I'm going to go ahead and can that too. Alright, my syrup has been heating for 6 minutes. We're going to backfill these jars to 1/4 of an inch from the top with liquid. Give it a little poke. Poke out the air bubbles. And then fill a little bit more. I'm not quite at 1/4 inch of headspace. Gonna wipe the rim. Sure, it's sticky. This stuff is sticky. I want that rim to not be sticky. There's a clean lid, clean new lid, a ring. Bring it down to fingertip tight. Hot. Gonna lift it, stick it in my canner that is over here hot already. And continue to fill the rest of the jars. I have room for probably 4 pints of the syrup in my canner. So that's what I'm gonna do. Then with the rest of this juice, we're just gonna call it good and be done with it. When we're canning these, we're gonna bring our water to a boil. If you're just doing half pints, it's 10 minutes. If you're doing pints, it's 15. So since I have pints in with my half pints, I'm gonna process these for 15 minutes. When our time is up, we're gonna turn off our heat, remove the lid, and let it sit for 5 minutes before we take our jars out of the canner. What a day. I am finished. I ended up with 13 half pints of jalapeno jelly, 3 pints of meat marinade, and 10 half pints of Cowboy Candy, and a bag of the Jalapeno Poppers. I am excited about this. I am done with jalapenos. I hope I don't see one for a while, but I have a feeling that my garden is going to gift me with a big harvest before the season ends again, and I'll have to find another way to preserve these. I am ready to gift these for the holidays. I'm ready to have them during the holidays, share with family and friends, enjoy them all winter. They're just really nice to have. I hope that you've learned some good ways to preserve your peppers. I hope that this puts a little bit of ease in your soul about water bath canning. These are some good recipes to try if you're a beginner. They're easy. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you later.
What are you going to do with it all?
Well, I thought maybe you could build me a bigger pantry.
No.